If you could elaborate on that.
We're not going to have PvP gear. PvP is not. Thank you very much. We appreciate your support.
Do you guys want resilience in Diablo? Oh. We knew that.
So yeah, no, we're gonna avoid PvP specific stats, and we're not gonna have any PvP gear or no power is gonna come from PvP. It's not the point of it. We don't want any kind of conflict between the PvE and PvP game. And then the way the arenas work is every skill has a set of PvE data and PvP data. So yeah, we do actually alter some of the aspects of skills to make them work in PvP. We try not to alter them so much that they change the nature of what the skill is. So they tend to be things like we might change cooldowns from PvE to PvP. We might change costs or tweak damage a little bit. But we try not to change it so that it's foreign to you. We do have some skills that are more PvP leaning because we don't feel with the customization that you have in Diablo, it's pretty easy to avoid those skills if you're never going to PvP. But there's some skills that's just too... It's not that they're useless in PvE, it's that they're maybe not as useful or desired as they would be in PvP. And we think that's fine, as long as it doesn't dominate the whole skill set.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know what Deckard Cain's doing in Diablo 3. I haven't heard anything about him, and I do like that guy.
He's doing the same thing he always is doing. He's trying to thwart evil. He's been spending the last 20 years he's researching, looking for ways to stop the coming invasion of Hell, because now that the World Stone has been destroyed, there's nothing keeping Hell from invading. And he doesn't know why they haven't invaded yet, but he's going to make damn sure that when they do invade, mankind is prepared.
Thank you.
Nathan does an awesome Deckard Cain, by the way.
Come on up.
Just do it. One more step. Thank you all for coming out to BlizzCon.
Sorry, Nathan.
It's more of a fan service. It's not really good, but I can't be stopped from doing it in the playtests and then the placeholder sounds in the game. It's awful, but it's something I love to inflict on the team.
All right, this morning you implemented a lot of story, trying to get story in different places and as many places as possible. Are you also trying to address different story reactions and interactions with a wizard compared to a monk when dealing with an NPC for story replayability?
We're not having different, if I understand your question correctly, we're not having different paths through the story. But the different characters, the different player characters will react to the story differently to a certain degree. And one of the things we're toying around with right now is the quest log is being relayed. The quest log has a verbose, which is more wordy version of your quest objectives, and that's told from the player's own voice, so that's different per class. So that'll kind of give your player's take on what's going on. So that'll be different for every class, and that takes into account the player's backgrounds and what their backstory is.
Thank you.
So my first question, actually this is only one question, but when do I get my beta key? And
what's your address?
What's that?
What's your address?
Okay, yeah, just email it to me. I'll come meet you afterwards, don't worry.
All right.
This is a PvP question. So what it looks like now is that you're trying to separate arena from the regular PvE aspects, comparatively to previous versions where it's just you just jump in a game, you go kill people, you trick them into maybe, hey, turn on the combat key and let's go fight. How's that going to balance with arena and PvE? Are you guys thinking about doing like separate skill trees, or, I mean, how are we going to work that into it?
Is this how are we going to balance PvP versus PvE?
Well, I mean, in previous versions, if there's only like a couple classes really worth PvE or PvPing with, so in this one, it'd be maybe a little bit more beneficial if there's some more tweaks to PvP later on down the road when it seems like that wasn't addressed in previous games.
Okay. if I understand the question correctly, it's how are we going to make the other classes viable in PvP? Make sure that they're all viable?
That's the idea, but I mean, realistically, I mean, the other classes just kind of fell by the wayside, and no one really addressed it, and PvP was just kind of pushed off to the side.
Okay,
and this
well-
one, it seems like it's going to have more of a, you know, a role in the game, at least in Arena.
Yeah, well, we definitely, I mean, as I mentioned, we've separated PvE and PvP. There is not going to be any PvP in the PvE game. And that's intentional because pretty much all that was really, it was used for, other than the occasional, when the game first came out, there was some good experiences that came out of it. But after that, it was pretty much used for dueling, which we now put into the arenas, or griefing. You know, I really like griefing. That's a little secret, but and I griefed me plenty of people in Diablo in my time, and I apologize. Not really, but ultimately our decision was we really wanted co-op play, and we felt like any chance for griefing from a PvP standpoint hurt people's desire to want to play co-op together, and we just couldn't abide that. So we've separated them. And how we'll make the classes all viable? Well, part of it is separating them also means we can tune and balance the game, PvP game separately than the PvE game, which makes it a lot easier to make sure that every class has something to do in PvP and that every class is useful and viable.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I think the game looks amazing. I think it's really awesome. But I'm just wondering, other than concept art, where do you guys get your color palettes when you do your backgrounds and characters?
Pat, you want to tackle that?
Well, I think we really look at the colors that are going to make the most, you know, the ones that are going to get the best bang for the buck in the environment. Whatever the mood is, we're trying to sell. I mean, different colors have different connotations in different societies. So we just really look for the ones that really sell what we're trying to do in that particular environment.
There's also an aspect of where we're trying to make things different enough so that as you're playing the game, things are changing up. You know, you're not always stuck sort of in the same environment. So there's a lot of care taken to sort of ensure that that's happening as well. So you guys are only playing like little slices here, which are awesome. But once you see the whole game, you'll see that what we're doing is we're sort of changing things up and making sure that it's never quite the same thing.
I think that I've learned on this project that there's story in everything, even the tiniest bit of art, the smallest decision. If you progress from a red-hued environment in the demo to the blue outdoors, there's a little something that you take away from that, and definitely palettes inform that.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering how you guys are gonna handle resistance compared to D2.
Well, the first thing we did was we changed resistance from flat percentage to basically a rating. It works a little bit more like defense did, in that it scales with the level of the monsters, so it can grow a lot more. We don't have to basically go to Nightmare and pull resistance down. It's a fairly broad question though. Like in a lot of ways, we're handling it the same. Resistance is still a big part of the game. It's still it's a big focus of your defensive building of your character in higher levels. But sometimes when people ask that question, they're asking about like, are we doing like double and triple immunity type monsters and things like that? And we really are. Right now, our plan is to avoid that and instead go for high resistance monsters because we don't want to completely negate somebody's ability to hurt an enemy. We also diversify damage types a lot more across the classes, but we still can't count on a class having a diversity of different damage types that they use.
Jay, I bet they want to know if they're going to have to stack fire resistance.
Are we going to have to stack fire resistance?
Or any resistance going into any particular fight.
It's really hard to say at this point. I mean, there's some value to stacking resistances, to acquiring different kinds, but it's really going to be based more off, again, it's kind of an in-game question because resistances are really more of an in-game stat. So until we can start building the in-game, it's hard for us to say exactly how we'll use it. Right now, we're kind of planning on using it the same, but we're going to look at it a lot closer when we get to the point of building it, and hopefully address any issues that Diablo 2 had.
Thank you.
Hey guys,
Blue glowing eyes, you know.
I'm wondering
it's got dispersion.
how Diablo 3's PvP arena, if it will support multi-platforms.
Support multi-platforms.
As in, for example, rather than having the ground all even, you can have like different levels.
Maybe. We certainly can. I mean, we can do it. That's not a problem. We specifically chose not to do it because the game does not play always great when you do a lot of height variation. And Diablo is essentially in a lot of ways, it's a two-dimensional game. Like, even though we have a 3D engine and you can move up and down platforms and things like that, if you shoot something that is higher or lower than you, essentially on our side, we have to guess what your intent is. And our guess is never perfect. So with our first arenas that we made, we found that it was just a lot more fun to have more of a level surface and not have to worry about that. That being said, we'll make more arenas and we'll continue to play around with that.
Thank you.
Come forward a little bit more. There you go.
Hi, I'm Mathieu from Big Crits. I have a question much about, the destiny of certain characters. Like in Diablo 2, you go back to Tristram and it's completely sacked. And, I grew up playing Diablo 1 with my dad, so I got really sentimental and attached to Tristram.